want to get someone to introduce Kaylee, so I get to do it. And I have to say that my first experience with Kaylee was on a Mexico mission trip. And she was about, I don't know, 15 years old. And she and Dylan dated then. I didn't catch on to what the future was going to be. She wanted to go on the trip, and she went. And I just have to say that knowing Kaylee has been a wonderful experience. She's had quite a life. Lots of good things happen for amazing little people. And we're just glad to have her here, glad to have you in the neighborhood. And Jim says, don't touch this thing. If you'll just talk, it'll pick you up. So, Kaylee Peak.
Well, I'm not a public speaker, as I think I've forewarned everyone in this room. So, I'm also a very emotional person, and I cry, so y'all just bear with me. There's nothing in the world sad about what I'm saying today. I don't know why, I just cry. So I think it's an inherited trait because my sisters are the same way, so Miss Catherine can vouch for that. So to kind of preface how a non-public speaker gets this position, I don't know if many of you know that, hold on a minute. I guess it was Miss Ann may have to clarify this, but there was an announcement in the church bulletin, gosh, it was back in like maybe January, February, and it said that the ladies' luncheon was about to meet in a week or two, and the speaker was to be determined. And so somehow God slapped me across the face in the service that day and said, go tell Miss Ann that you want to share how the women in this church have ministered to your family and drawn you into this church family. I was like, oh, you are kidding. No, like, I am not doing that, like, not doing it. And so I got up out of the pew when they played this music that day, and it was like, God was like, go tell Ann that you'll speak. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Totally disobedient. So I went home and had lunch, and I was like, okay, God, I'll negotiate with you. If I cross Miss Ann's path in the next 2 days, I'll tell her. Like, if you want me to do this, you put her in my path. God didn't do it. So I was like, score. I missed out. I did not have to get up here and share. So Mr. Bruce Henderson ended up giving his testimony about life and the cancer and all that he's been going through. And did a great job, and I came and I was supportive, and I was like, yes, he did so good, and I got out of that, like, good job, Kaylee. So I left, and a few months later, I don't even know the timeline, but Miss Kent, I opened up my email one day, and I have an email, and it says opw2@charter.net, and I was like, Owen Peak, like my brother-in-law, he has a new email address, and didn't know it was Miss Kent's. And she emailed me and said, Kaylee, somehow I've been put in charge of the women of the church meetings this year. I'm not real sure how that happened. And in my duties, I'm supposed to find speakers. And I don't know why, but the Lord keeps putting you on my heart. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I thought I ran and hid from this. Like, how in the world, God, are you still chasing after me? So I'm sitting there crying, and I'm typing on my keyboard, and I was like, absolutely. And before I knew it, I had sent it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just signed myself up for this. So I told her in the email, I was like, months back, the Lord told me that I should get up. And I don't have a phenomenal message today, and I'm not sharing my testimony. A lot of people have asked what I'm speaking on. I don't have a great testimony other than I'm a Christian and I'm saved. I am from Selma. Some of you in here know me and some of you don't, so I was going to give a little background of that. I was born and raised in Selma. My parents are Alan and Harriet Jones, and dated Dylan Peak, the son of my wonderful in-laws, Peggy and Jerry Peak, in high school, and we went our separate ways in college and ended up back married. Lived in Montgomery after we were married for a few years, and we had a wonderful church family that we found there in Pike Road. It was Pike Road Baptist Church. And I grew up Baptist right across the street on the other corner. Selma has tons of churches that are awesome, great pastors, great children's programs, great Bible studies. There's a lot going on in this town in every church. But Dylan and I, when we left Montgomery, he was accepted into nurse anesthetist school, and so we moved our family to Nashville. And at that time, we had 2 kids. We had Evelyn, who was 2.5, and Collins was 4 months old. And so we moved up, packed up our family, and moved to a city that we knew absolutely nothing about. Searched and searched and found a church home there that we absolutely loved, could not ever imagine leaving. But we knew when Dylan graduated we wanted to move back to home because his parents are here, my parents are here. We wanted our children to be raised around their grandchildren, so we're grandparents. So we moved here, and honestly, for me, not necessarily for Dylan, but coming here and like trying to find a church home, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was burdensome. Because we had 4 kids. So we went to Nashville with 2, and we moved here and we had 4. Like, who wants to go visit churches every Sunday with 4 kids and have to find where the nursery is and, you know, meet people and talk, tell them who you are, or maybe they know you, maybe they don't. So Dylan, when we moved back here, never, you know, he's very patient with me, and I'm the hard-headed of the 2 of us, but he never said he wanted to join this church and wanted this to be, you know, he went with me and we visited lots of churches, and there are great churches in this community. And every one of them, you know, people welcomed us in, loved on us. But there was, today, I guess what I really wanted to share about is to encourage you all as women in this church or in whatever church that you're in. Women have a place in the church, they do. And there was something, a statistic, or not really a statistics, but I found this online. Half, possibly more than half, of the adult members of the church today are women. Women do not hold a second place in our Father's plan for the eternal happiness and well-being of His children. Women are an absolutely essential part of that plan. Without the women, the plan could not function. Without the women of the church, the entire program would be frustrated. And I think that's true. Everyone has a place in the church, they do. But what really, I feel like set Cornerstone apart for us was, and I don't know if it's because we had family here that we were treated this way. At first, I was a little bitter about it, but I started getting letters in the mail from different church members saying, thank you for coming. We want to invite you to church. And I was like, I'll be darned. I said, Mr. Jerry is out paying people to send us letters to try to get us to join this church. And I was like, no, like we're not going back there, Dylan. I was like, your dad is out soliciting us. And I was like, part of me was we wanted our own church for our own family's identity. We didn't really I didn't necessarily want to be a part of this church because Dylan's parents and family went here. I didn't want to be a part of my parents' church because my parents went there. I wanted to find our own church and be our own family and have our own identity in the church. But we could not come here and avoid it. I mean, we were, every Sunday that we did come here to visit, people poured over to our pew, loved on us, thanked us for coming, wrote us letters when we left saying thank you for coming. We enjoyed having your kids in church Wednesday night. So I don't know if there's a hidden ministry in this church where people do that. And if it is, every church, if you're in another church, you need to go and tell your church to start doing that. But it really, really, really meant a lot to us. And it was really the drawing card. Pastor Steve is great. He is. But a pastor isn't what we were searching. A good pastor isn't what we were searching for in a church family. A children's program is great, but a children's program isn't really what we were searching for. We wanted a church that had community of believers and a church where people were really loving on each other and pouring their lives into other people. And we felt like this was it. So, in any other church that you are a member of, I like to think that it didn't happen the way that it did because we were family and had family here. But there are a lot of needs in the church congregation every Sunday. There are a lot of people that come in the doors that are strangers to Selma that we don't know. And I think that you all did a really good job of pouring your lives into us and loving on us and drawing us into this. But we also, as women in the church, I just feel like there's a calling on us to seek out the person that we don't know that's sitting next to us in the pew. The kids that come on Wednesday night that we don't know their parents, finding a way to reach out to them and saying, thank you for getting them here. It meant a lot to us. So I had a Bible verse that kind of, let's see. Let me find my phone. Oh, bear with me just a second. So in Acts chapter 2, verse 46 through 47, it says, every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And I think as the women of the church, or as any church congregation that you belong to, we are responsible for having others become saved. But the community of fellowship and the community of believers is as important. I think there are a lot of people in the church today that are saved, but do they feel plugged in? Do they feel that they're a part of the congregation? Do they feel that the congregation loves them and is meeting their needs? We did, and because of that, we're very thankful. The notes that y'all sent with Collins, our 4-year-old, being sick, I mean, there were times we got letters in the mail from people saying Cornerstone Presbyterian is praying for Collins and praying for y'all. And I mean, whoever's in charge of that ministry, kudos, because it really means a lot. It does. And we're very thankful. So I guess, you know, and not being a public speaker, the biggest takeaway or point that I had today was community. A church is dead without a community of believers. According to Webster, community is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. So some of you in here may be on committees in this church, committees in your church back home. Some of you may not, and you don't have to be on a committee to be a part of a community. I feel like, you know, there's been a couple of times the Lord has nudged me in church and said, write so-and-so a letter and tell them the music was great. And Miss Sarah, I never did it, sorry. I'm getting better at listening, I promise I am. But I just think there's ways, we as members of any church, there's always a way to reach out to the people that make up the church. So if you feel a nudge in church to write someone a letter, make a phone call, do it, because if you don't, the Lord, He will get His way. So the Lord is not about negotiations, and I learned that the hard way. So don't ever try to negotiate with Him and tell Him if He does something, you'll do back in return, because He doesn't work that way. But I just want to thank y'all for letting me come and speak. And I hope that you all will leave here encouraged to find some way, if you're not involved or not fostering the community in your church, to do that, and to know that it truly, truly, truly makes a difference. It really does. It made a huge difference in our family and Will and others' lives as well. So thank you all for coming today. And I tried not to tell anyone I was doing this, and no one would show up. But again, that didn't pan out in my favor either. So, but thank you all, as this church and any church you belong to, for making Selma what it is, and we love y'all.